Thank you so much for everyone that's in attendance. I know we've got a lot of time zones represented here. So good morning, good afternoon, good night. Thank you all so much for being here with us for this Guesty virtual meetup, staying ahead in 2026, travel trends and booking behaviors worth watching. We have an excellent group of panelists here today. As a quick introduction, my name is Taylor Murphy. I am the Enterprise Success Team Lead here at Guesty. I'm super excited to be leading this exciting and timely event today. But more importantly, are our fantastic speakers. First up, we have Corinne Oakey, who is the VP of Community and Engagement at Breezeway, who's going to be sharing some key insights on tools and operational workflows for you to maintain high quality, proactive operations during not only your normal day-to-day, but those major events and rapid guest cycles. Next, we have our very own Jeff Niesis, who is the Price Optimizer Program Manager here at Guesty. He's going to be sharing some strategic revenue management strategies designed for those unique demands of the high-impact international events like the World Cup, but so much more, obviously. And lastly, we welcome Nino Totino, President of Desert Soul Real Estate, who will share his boots-on-the-ground perspective of the real-world preparations that he's making for his business to maximize bookings and revenue while securing those 5-star reviews along the way. So let's go ahead and dive in. To give you an idea of just how things are going to run today, we're going to take a quick look at the agenda. I'm going to start with some opening words about today's topic before we dive into the presentations from our esteemed speakers. And then we're going to close off, like I said, with that panel discussion featuring pre-submitted and your live audience questions. So I want to take a minute or two to just introduce Guesty to those of you who might not be familiar yet with what we do. So Guesty is the leading property management software providing short-term rental hosts and property management companies the most comprehensive and streamlined set of tools that you need to operate seamlessly, bring in more bookings and create excellent guest experiences, which is what we are all looking to do, because ultimately all of that combined together allows you to grow your businesses. Yes, we have been around since 2013 and we've raised over $400 million in funding. We have 16 offices worldwide and we have customers in 90 countries. Now, why should you actually care about any of those numbers? This team is funding our global locations. It means that we're investing in you and your business every single day. And as the team lead of the Enterprise Customer Success Program, I am here every single day on calls with users, and I get to see that in real time. And it's just so exciting because all of that, all of the funding, all of the team members, all of the locations we have, it just means better distribution for you. And it means that we can focus on core features and functionalities that are going to deliver those high ADRs and operational efficiencies, which you guys are ultimately looking for. What's more, Guesty offers packages for every size of your business, whether you've got one property or you've got thousands of properties, or if you're somewhere in the middle. So we've got Guesty Lite that offers for hosts with 1 to 3 properties, typically, who are looking to maximize your earnings on autopilot and grow with ease. And then for property managers that are more in that middle range of the 4 to 200 listings, our Pro package offers professionals a way to optimize your operations for efficiency and scaling. And then enterprise companies with 200 listings or more, which I'm very intimately familiar with my team, we offer that customized, scalable solution to help transform your operations. So whether you're just getting started or you're a full-time professional property management company looking to scale, Guesty offers a solution that's suited to your business, no matter where you are, both today and into the future. So now that you know a little bit more about Guesty, we're going to discuss the topic at hand. So starting with a little bit of data, which I personally love, the 2026 Soccer World Cup is a major opportunity in the North American short-term rental industry that's going to be disrupting travel patterns that we typically look at across the US, Canada, and Mexico. So there's 104 matches that are packed into just 39 days. 16 host cities are bracing for an influx of $5 million in international fans. So this massive surge is likely going to exhaust local hotel inventories and drive those prices upwards and tighten the market for those surrounding areas that are still within commuting distance, which you're going to hear us refer to throughout this as halo cities. So they might not necessarily be where the host city is specifically, but it's where once that inventory gets maxed out, it's those local areas around that travelers are going to be looking at when they're trying to get close to the action. So the World Cup travel follows the match schedule more than traditional tourism patterns. So fans tend to anchor longer stays in the major hub cities or regional bases and then make short premium trips into those host cities, tightly more around match days. So what this means is that the demand won't just be isolated to those host markets alone. So what I was talking about a little bit previously was any of those cities within reasonable drive or train access can capture overflow demand and become part of the World Cup travel ecosystem. And one thing I know for sure after being married to someone who's worked in pro soccer for almost a decade is that soccer fans are incredibly passionate. So even if you are not in a host city, I'm telling you what you might view as reasonable driving distance might be way more than what you think for a normal soccer fan. They are so passionate and they are so excited to get in to be a part of such a huge event like this. So unlike traditional travel, the booking demand for the World Cup develops in stages actually, and your pricing strategy should definitely take this into account. So it's important to be aware of those stages so that you can properly balance pricing with the length of stay rules that you have for the biggest impact with pricing and availability decisions. So for example, while early bookings are going to include longer stays for workers, support staff, bookings closer to the event will be more last minute with rapid bookings of shorter stays like what we were talking about. So in that pre-tournament planning period, this is where fans are committing to those routes that they're willing to take in order to get to the match cities themselves and going ahead and locking in those accommodations. So you've also got those teams that are coming in and setting up. So those corporate and media teams that are securing those long stays for operational blocks, making sure that you are moving your pricing to match that and to really optimize and get the most out of that is absolutely crucial here. And we'll hear a lot more about that and what you can actually be doing from Jeff Nesis later on in the presentation. Moving into the group stage, we've got that June, mid-time in June from like 11th to the 27th, where it's a little bit more predictable. You've got that broad demand across your host cities. Many travelers are building that multi-city itinerary. So they're looking to hop between to catch their favorite teams at those different host cities, but are using one market as like a longer term base and those shorter stays for the specific matches they're interested in. Then you go into those knockout rounds where it's really rubber hitting the road. We're really starting to get into the finals of it. And people are really locked in. So the June 29th through July 15th, the most volatile and profitable phase, because this is when you've got not just the casual soccer fans. This is when everybody is really, really locked in. So the match results reveal the host cities only a couple days in advance. So it's a little bit more last minute, but it does trigger those rapid booking spikes. And then we get into the finals, right? So we've got July 19th, that maximum concentration is going to be in the New York, New Jersey region with the spillover into those nearby markets, those halo cities. So we have Guesty Price Optimizer, which is our tool that Jeff manages, that absolutely helps you with maximizing profit. And maximizing profit is going to be impossible for your business without dynamic, reacting, AI-powered rate optimization tools. So Guesty's Price Optimizer tool automates your pricing by processing hyper-local data points to adjust your rates in real time. So you can set those event-based rules to capitalize on match days and demand pacing to automatically increase your rates as occupancy fills up. And obviously, this doesn't just account for the World Cup. This is your everyday local events, whether it is a local fair that you've got, a local concert that's coming into town. Guesty Price Optimizer can meet you wherever you need and make sure that you are capturing that maximum revenue during those surges without you having to manually monitor the market 24/7. So choosing your right partner alongside those pricing tools is also key because the World Cup and those other major events are creating a level of operational pressure that's going to expose weak systems really fast. Guesty helps operators stay in control by centralizing operations, stabilizing communications, and keeping your calendars, pricing, and availability in sync across every platform. And that's what we're going to get in with Corinne a little bit later, specifically with Breezeway and how they can help you. But choosing that right partner, so your channel manager, making sure that you're reaching guests on more channels. Every channel means a different demographic, so it's giving you more opportunity to get your listings in front of more people, which ultimately, as we all know, means more bookings, which is what we want. Your unified inbox directly within Guesty, so you've got that centralized messaging from OTAs, email, SMS, and WhatsApp. Reply AI, which is a incredible functionality within Guesty that allows you to communicate with your guests in their language. With international events like this, you have people coming from all over the world, from so many different backgrounds, and Reply AI is able to help you translate in the moment so that nothing gets lost in translation. We've also got your multi-calendar within Guesty, so you can see every reservation, every hold, and every channel right in one place, giving you one cohesive view of everything you've got going on. Your task management, we've got turnovers, maintenance, inspections, all on track for you, especially in these really, really high occupancy times. And then locked manager within Guesty as well. So you can automate your property access 24/7, again, without you having to be the one monitoring that manually. Guesty is there for you every step of the way. So with this type of volume, with this type of event, risk management is absolutely essential. These events can get a little rowdy, get a little excited. Like I said, soccer fans are passionate. So you want to make sure that you've got in that built-in protection. And Guesty's Shield Suite has you covered end to end. And so with this increased exposure, it comes the high intent, high volume travel. So just to give you a quick little breakdown of our various protection features, we've got damage protection that gives you a friction-free alternative to dispute resolutions and process claims. Think damages from a party, guest accidentally broke a lamp, that kind of stuff. They were a little bit too excited in the pregame before their favorite match. We've got liability coverage. It's essentially a $1 million policy on all your reservations with automatic coverage for any accidental injuries or damages from the moment a guest books. So this is your proactive risk management against a guest or any third-party injuries. For example, somebody slips and breaks their leg, or if there's an accidental fire, whatever, all the things we don't want to think about. Guesty goes ahead and thinks about it for you, and our liability has you covered. Screen and protect for our EMEA and APAC customers. This is going to automatically screen those guests for you using their email address and their phone number. And essentially, Guesty screens your guests and assesses the risk and grants you a backup of $50,000 in case of damages. Then we've got Guest Verify, which allows you to screen every booking, thorough background checks across multiple databases, and real-time risk scoring that actually flags problematic patterns, ID, validation, and identity verification. Good to note that automated screening is also available globally, but the background checks are available only in the US. And then travel protection. So guests can elect to purchase travel protection policy at checkout on their direct booking site that you offer them, and you actually get to earn commission on every sold policy. So it's just an additional revenue source for you. And finally, our Pay Protect, which works seamlessly with Guesty Pay, which if you don't already know about Guesty Pay, please reach out. We would love to talk with you about it. It is our payment processor that is by property management companies for property management companies. It automatically blocks fraudulent cards for direct bookings and sends alerts about suspicious OTAs. Okay, so I am done with my spiel. I am so excited now to pass it over. We are kicking off first with Corinne Oki. And so going into this, just a reminder, Corinne is the VP of Community Engagement at Breezeway. She's going to be sharing some tools and strategies to maintain that high quality and proactive operation across your portfolio during these rapid guest cycles. So Corinne, take it away.
Amazing. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Let me just go ahead and start sharing my screen. Yeah, so as Taylor said, my name's Corinne Oki. I'm the VP of Community and Engagement here at Breezeway. I've been in the industry since 2008 and have spent, it'll be 9 years this month with Breezeway. And so I'm really excited to tell you a little bit more about Breezeway and what we do. But I'm going to get into that a little bit later. And, I want to just sort of kick it off and just talk a little bit more around at a high level, what Breezeway does is we help power hospitality experiences that are then going to elevate the guest experience, right? So all of the work that you guys are doing in your properties every day to make sure that your guests have a great time when they're there. And as we have been doing that for many years now, we've seen over 75 million tasks actually completed within the platform. And what we know about these types of events, right, is that good enough isn't enough, right? That's a failing grade. And you really need to make sure that as you're working and doing your day-to-day activities, that it is really on point. But we also know that the work that you're doing is really difficult to do. And there is a lot, Taylor talked about this a few minutes ago. There's a lot of manual coordination, a lot of manual work that could happen. I think what you're going to hear from this is that as many places as you can remove those manual touches and go with automation, the easier life becomes. What you're seeing on this screen is some findings from a report that we did last year, our state of work report. And really what folks were saying is how frequently there are last minute changes. And we know that, during some of these high traffic events, you're probably less likely to see, you may be less likely to see some changes when it comes to reservations. As you probably have stricter cancellation policies and there's a little bit less flexibility around the travel dates. But what that doesn't mean is that you're not going to see any sort of a decrease in guest issues. And the reality, right, that is reality for everyone on this call is that no matter how well you prepare, no matter how many steps and checklists and processes that you have in your business, something is going to go wrong. And it's really not a matter of what will go wrong. It's a matter of what do you do when it goes wrong. And that's really what we want to talk about, is how you can sort of set yourself up to be successful in those scenarios. Before we get into the guest who's actually in your property, I want to talk a little bit more about the pre-booking piece of it and things that many of you are probably already doing to protect your properties. But one of the first things is really being clear, Taylor alluded to, and, the passion that comes with some of the folks coming into the soccer market. And so really important that you're clear in your occupancy limits. You don't want to be the party house. You don't want people coming in, right? And we have enough sort of eyes on our industry as it is from a regulatory perspective. And so we want to make sure that we're doing you're doing everything that you can to really maintain a good standing within your community, right? Because once the World Cup or whatever the large event that you're looking at passes, you are still there, right? And you're still looking at your neighbors and working with them. And we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to avoid adding any fuel to the fire. So occupancy limits and being really clear and strict in those types of details is really important. And you want to make sure that you're communicating them in advance. So oftentimes a lot of these rules are part of your rental agreement. I'm staying in a property in a couple of weeks, and I got, a thing where I said, I acknowledge, but I'm the one signing it. It's not my entire party. And it's really important that everybody in the party actually gets this information. So it's important to make sure that these details, your house rules, parking details, noise ordinances, quiet hours, trash, all of that stuff that impacts our community is really clearly outlined and available to all of the guests who are staying in your properties, not just the signer of the agreement, because that's going to be really important, not only, again, to protect your properties, to protect your reputation and to make sure that it's a great event for everybody and that experience isn't impacted. This is also, Taylor talked a little bit about this a few minutes ago, but this is also a really good time to consider adding guest verification as part of your booking process if it's not something that you're doing today. It's a great way that you can make sure that you feel good about who the folks are that are coming into your properties before they arrive. And this is actually something that we're launching at Breezeway in the very near future that you can do directly within our platform as well. So lots of options there. And once you've got the right guests in your property, you really want to think about what you're doing to prepare the property. So one of the best ways that we can avoid some of that last minute chaos and that last minute high volume that happens is by being prepared. And I'm sure that as Nino and Jeff start talking and go through their presentations here, you're going to hear a lot more about this. But the one thing that I want to stress here is that from an operational perspective, most of this is already what you're doing, right? This is really what a lot of your teams, how your teams shine, right? This is what we train for, right? This is what we're here for, those busy turn days. So whether it is a big event like the World Cup, or whether it is a busy Saturday in your peak season, theoretically, and I say theoretically, right, there shouldn't be a huge difference there because you're really set to do that. But in order to make sure that your team can shine, it's really important that you have those basics in place, that you have made sure that your whole team is bought into it. And so as that volume increases, you may find yourself in scenarios where maybe these aren't your regular cleaners. Maybe these aren't the folks that are traditionally working with you on a regular basis. Maybe they're a little less familiar with your rentals. So sure, you're going to train them and get them up to speed and let them know what your brand standards are. But you really want to make sure that you can have the confidence in the work that's being done, because again, we want to reduce the need for you to have to manually do everything. And so one way that you can do that is that as part of your checklist is actually require people to provide photographs, right? So that you have, you have a way to kind of understand a little bit more what happened in the property. But this is also a really great way to combat any damage claims or any guest issues that might come up, because you actually have visual proof of timestamped photographs that you can share. This is also, a really great opportunity. And this is probably maybe a little bit more applicable for folks who are just getting started, who are putting their properties on for these big events. But it runs the gamut for everyone. You want to make sure that you are welcoming people into a clean and safe property. And I'm sure that a lot of folks on this call are probably familiar with my colleague, Justin Ford. But I think this is also a really great time to encourage folks to consider taking, Breezeway offers a safety course. And I promise you that as you look at the pieces of that safety course, you will find things that you aren't thinking about, right? You've got smoke detectors, you check that they work, but are your cleaners checking them at every turn? Are we making sure that a guest didn't take that information out? Like there's some really important proactive ways that you can to make sure that your guests are going into not only a clean, but a safe property. And I think, also thinking about we have different types of inspections often, right? You have a lot of companies have different owner inspections that they'll do, or VIP inspections. This is a really great opportunity to really double down on the amenities within your properties that are going to matter to these folks. You're thinking things like your TVs, your Wi-Fi, right? The things that are going to be essential for these types of stays that are always important, but maybe a little bit more here. And then we also want to think about, once you've got the right guests, once you've got the right work being done, it's also around how do you complete that work that is happening at the properties. And it's really important that when there are changes or when things do pop up, that you're communicating that quickly, efficiently. And it's unrealistic to think that as a property manager or an owner of a company or a host, that you can be in the middle of every single piece of that. And so really important to lean into automation where you can, to move things forward, again, without some of that manual intervention that we've talked about already. So I want to just sort of paint the picture of when a property, you get a guest who checks out, you go in, you clean it, then it gets inspected, and then it's ready. If you have to be that person that the cleaner calls, that then calls the inspector, who then communicates to the guest, you're taking valuable time away from things that you could do to focus on higher impact activities. And that's what we want to be able to help you with, right? We want you to be able to do the things that require you and your knowledge and your skill set, and allow automation to handle the things like telling the inspector that the property is ready for them. We also want to make sure that you're sort of prepared in the event when something goes wrong, or if something goes wrong, because these can be heightened when things happen during a turnover, or when there's an issue with a guest that gets reported. And being able to quickly communicate this work that needs to be done, not only to your team, but then out to your vendors is super important, because we want to be able to find resolution and get that done as quickly as possible. And speaking of, I know I talked a little bit about guidebooks a few minutes ago, but this is a really good way to leverage connectivity between the tools that you use. So if your guidebook allows for your guests to submit issues directly from that guide, which flows into your ops system, which can tell your maintenance supervisor that work needs to be done, this is a really great time to turn that on if you don't already have it there, because again, it's a way to have things happen through automation that doesn't require an individual person, and then be able to make sure that that work gets assigned out to the person that actually makes the most sense, so that you can deliver that really great service and that really great experience. Because ultimately, that's really what we're all here to do, right? We're here to make sure that that your guests have a really great experience in your properties. And we've talked about this before, but when you give guests a really easy way to communicate with you, not only are you going to get better information and better feedback, but you might get some information that you wouldn't necessarily get until that turnover, which is going to help you prepare more for those busy, busy days. Many of our clients actually, when you start to think about how we interact with our guests, many of our clients are actually relying on, templated responses. They rely on our assist team, which is an after hours call service that we offer. And those folks are handling those late night calls so that their team can really focus when they're in the office. And they're following the procedures just like, somebody who's been with you for 5 or 6 years would be doing. And they're also relying a lot. I think this is something that if you're not kind of paying attention to, it's really important, is what is the experience that the guest is having in the moment. So a lot of our clients are relying a lot on our AI powered guest sentiment functionality, which is basically reading all of the conversations with that guest and saying, hey, this guest is happy, or there seems like something's going on, you want to pay attention, and flagging that for you so that you're not going in and reading every single conversation that is happening with your guests, and are able to take action on the things, again, that have the highest value. Because hitting the right guests with the right message is really important, no matter where you are in that booking process. And, one of the things that you probably want to think about, and I think somebody else is going to talk about this a little bit more, but is that idea of upsells, right? Like, what makes sense for your guests? If you're in a market where Ubers are going to be in surge pricing, or rental cars are going to be tough to get, maybe there's an opportunity for you to offer an upsell and partner with a local transport company for airport pickups or things like that, that will, again, enhance the experience of your guests. But again, being smart about sort of when you're hitting them with these messages is super important. And so I promised I would talk a little bit more about what Breezeway does, but we are a smart operations and guest experience platform. We launched, like I said, back in 2016, really focused on operations and the tools that our clients need to really run their businesses and things like inspections and cleans and maintenance. But as the company has progressed, we've continued to build on that functionality, and we offer a guest experience solution as well, with guidebooks, like I talked about, our assist team. We have a messaging product, all of the tools that you sort of need to run your business within a platform. And we're really excited because I'm here because we have got a really strong connection with Guesty. And so best of all, right, when your products that you use work hand in hand with your PMS, that's really great. So it makes it super easy for our guests to take advantage of 2 really great platforms to run their business. So I'm going to end it with just, if you are looking for some inspiration for a cleaning checklist, feel free to grab that QR code, or if you're interested in learning a little bit more about Breezeway and what we do and how we might help your business, there's a QR code here. You can book a demo. But with that, Taylor, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Corinne. We are now going to turn to revenue and pricing strategies, as I invite Guesty's own price optimization and revenue strategy expert, Jeff Niesis, to the mic. So take it away, Jeff.
Thanks, Taylor. Okay, so what we're going to dive into today is some strategies, some data, and things that are going on with big events. Obviously, the main one upcoming here is going to be the World Cup over the next couple months, starting in June. So what we can see here is the big event surge. A lot of these cases, there is an opportunity to have massive increase, massive spikes in ADR, or average daily rate, and your occupancy values, especially if these are going to occur in your off season. These could be monthly, these could make your month essentially, right? And I know Nina's going to talk a little bit about this further for like seasonal events. But in this case, what we can see here, we have 3 major events that we're tracking. We have Taylor Swift's The Eras Tour. We have the 2026 World Cup and the F1 Grand Prix in Austin. All US-based events, well, North America-based events mainly here. But what we can see is these massive spikes, intensity demand spikes for ADR and occupancy. So in order to capture these, timing is critical. Underpricing is the worst thing you could do during these periods. Overpricing, there's ways that we can bring those costs down, but being able to detect these events identify them, and mark up those events, the prices in order to achieve those high value ADRs is going to be critical to the success for these specific events and in your off season potentially. So some of these events are seasonal. They can be planned for, and that's kind of what I mentioned. Is going to go into that in Southern California here with Coachella and Stagecoach. There are recurring events you can plan for every year. You know when they're going to come. They're going to be at the certain weekend or week, the same month every year. And then there are the one-off events like the Taylor Swift tour, right? So there's a different strategy there. We can plan behind those seasonal events, and maybe we have different strategies for when tickets are released versus when demand increases and there's fewer properties available. Now we can have a different strategy. Same thing in the opposite direction for the Taylor Swift tour, right? So when those tickets go on sale and that tour is announced in that city, people are probably they could be booking their properties before they even get tickets, right? And so that's key to get these items picked up, detected automatically if you can, and that's what Price Optimizer can help you do. Or if you're going to do the manual research, it's just a lot to go through on a daily basis to track all these events coming to your market. So with that said, we talk about event lead time here. The days in advance, like how far in advance are people going to book before the event? We have some different values here, but again, accuracy is key. Getting the dates right, getting the property priced properly. Overpricing is okay. Right? We don't want to be underpriced. If we overprice it, at least we have time to readjust those values and bring them back down if you need to do more research. If you don't have a dynamic pricing tool that can do that for you, overpricing is okay early on, but we need to then do the research to readjust back down. So that's where we talk about compression in the market. Compression is demand spikes. Compression versus pacing. Pacing is velocity. So how far in advance are guests booking, the booking lead time, and then what is the demand spike? How many properties are actually available in your market? How quickly are they going to fill up? Is the market going to book out right away if it's a small market when the event is announced, or is there a longer window here that we could make adjustments to our strategies? So depending on the event, we can do some early bird pricing. Again, talking about Taylor Swift, we want to make sure in those one-off big events, we need to get pricing set accurately ahead of time and as soon as everything's announced, because you don't want to be playing catch up. If someone's booked half of your inventory for that date already and we haven't made an adjustment yet, there's not really a good way to get those back. When we talk about events such as the World Cup or the F1 Grand Prix in Austin, those are going to be the World Cup is a one-off, but it is such a gigantic event. It's really hard to compare that to something. So, especially here in Southern California, if there's any, users here, this is a stress test for the Olympics next year as well, right? Being able to try to get the World Cup right is going to be similar to what you do with the Olympics because it's such a major event and it's going to cover such a wide region of the area in Southern California that this is the time to kind of figure that out. So here we can do multiple strategies, and that's where I talk about the F1 Grand Prix in Austin, right? We can have an early bird strategy, and then we can potentially hold high demand values for ADR longer because it's a seasonal event. There could be people that are going to wait to the last minute, see, and hope that the prices drop just like they typically would within that market. So maybe they're locals or something along those lines. And lastly, Corinne mentioned this earlier, but these events is the perfect time. If you don't do upsells, this is the perfect time to try. I guarantee you will be able to sell at the very minimum, early check-in or late check-out if possible. You'll be able to do upsells if you're going to do, she mentioned, transportation, even if it's stocking the fridge, whatever you can do to save time. These could be big groups of people. If you have a big property, they could be booking multiple properties within your area. There is the opportunity for upsells. Upsells are great throughout the entire year. If you haven't done them, this is the perfect opportunity to try them as well. Moving on, specifically about the World Cup here. We have some really interesting data from Key Data specifically here that shows the value of this event across specific markets. So the World Cup is going to be within North America, the US, and Mexico. So 3 countries across all locations here. Key Data has picked up a plus 533% revenue increase per listing for those specific event dates, like match dates, right? So it's key. You can see how crucial this is to get those pricing set properly. And what Taylor mentioned in early on, where there's going to be different groups, there's different stages of this event. There's the pre-planning when right after the draw happened, right? When you know if your country's going to be in the World Cup, there is the group stage, right? Which is going to be you're playing different groups, different teams within your group. Then there's going to be the knockout stage, which is an entirely different event. These are all specific, like different micro events within a macro event of the World Cup. So there are different strategies here for each of these time periods. But what we can see here specifically, Kansas City, this is where we're seeing it's a low inventory, vacation rental inventory, and high demand. It is, if you're in that market and you don't have this priced properly, again, you could have missed out on that plus 3,800, percent increase in ADR. Now, if you're the last one, the last property available, that still is, something you could try to play catch up on. But those properties are not going to be available last minute. They're going to book out ahead of time. That's where we got low inventory, high demand. And lastly here, you know, especially for the US users, if you're not on Booking.com, you need to be, especially for the World Cup. If you think about like in the US, most bookings come from Airbnb and the majority of the markets. The majority of those bookings are probably going to come from Airbnb if it's from an OTA. Right? In Europe, it's Booking.com. So who's coming to the World Cup? It's going to be a lot of European countries and a lot of travelers from Europe. They're going to book on Booking.com more often than they're going to book on Airbnb. So this is a great opportunity to diversify your booking platform, just like Taylor mentioned earlier. Distance to the stadium premium. This also goes with what Taylor mentioned with the halo effect, right? We can see the different ADR spikes based off of these bands of miles, I guess, from the event. Now, each event's going to be different, especially for the World Cup. Stadiums could be outside of the market. They could be in a different portion of the market that's not as attractive for people to book and stay. So that's what we can see these bands. The closer you are, obviously, to any event, you're going to have the most opportunity for that massive ADR increase. Then we talk about, the 5 to 15 mile, that is the transit, right? If there's a train or subway or whatever it might be, some sort of mass public transit, there is still opportunity, even though you're not right next to the arena or the stadium or whatever it might be. If there's an easy way to travel there from your property, it is going to be very attractive. And that's kind of what's going to happen when we talk about Miami. The stadium is not downtown, it's not at South Beach, but you can easily travel there. So that is the perfect opportunity for like a little band outside of the stadium. And then lastly, we'll have these wider bands, those halo cities for larger events, the Olympics, the World Cup. That's where you get the overflow into those other markets. So if it is Southern California, it could be maybe it's out in the desert with Nino. It could be, Santa Monica versus different areas, maybe even down to San Diego, possibly. Like there is opportunity for people to stay in these halo markets and then travel on game day or match day to those events specifically. And lastly, just the key takeaways here, right? We talk about the big events. Think about it as one-off events versus seasonal events. There's a difference. There could be strategy differences, but being able to pick up those events accurately and price them ahead of time and not being, waiting to try to figure out what you should do, that is going to be key. Timing and accuracy, right? Again, how quickly can you pick those up? How far ahead are we going to adjust our prices? If it's a one-off event, we need to do it the day those tickets are announced and your city's announced versus, a recurring seasonal item. We could plan ahead for the next couple of years. We know what we're going to do. We know what our strategy is going to be. Compression versus pacing, right? Compression is market occupancy, pace, and versus what we have on the books, pacing, right? What did we do at this time last year? If we have an event this weekend and our occupancy last year was in the 20s or 30s, now it could be, if it's a big event, it could be up in the 80s or 90s for that week, right? So compression versus pacing, what's the demand and what did we do last year versus today? And lastly, those distance variables, ADR bands via accessibility, right? Just because you're not by the stadium doesn't mean you can't have that spike in ADR, spike in occupancy. And especially for those big events, that's where you get the overflow into those other markets. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Taylor.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jeff, for all of those incredible insights. For those of you who would like to learn more practical tips on revenue, pricing, operational strategies, everything in between to get ahead of the World Cup or other events, stay tuned for the link to our extensive World Cup playbook, which I'm going to share with you shortly. But now I would like to invite our final speaker, last but certainly not least, Nino Tutino, president of Desert Soul Real Estate, who's going to walk us through some real-time actionable steps that he's taking to seize revenue and bookings during these exceptional opportunities for large local events.
Great. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Guesty, also for having us. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here with you guys. Great. So obviously, we're going to go over my boots on the ground kind of perspective and playbook as to how we kind of handle things out here. Obviously, kind of from the introduction, my name's Nino Tutino, and I am the president and owner of Desert Soul Real Estate here. We are based out of La Quinta, California. We're right around 112 listings approximate with Guesty. I've been a Guesty user now. This will be my 4th season. When I started with Guesty, we had about 20 listings, and so we have been scaling quite rapidly since partnering with Guesty and also other products and features as Breezeway and dynamic pricing and of those such to help us with our scalability. Obviously, being in La Quinta, some of our major events, we do have the American Express tournament, which is gaining a lot of traction. The BNP Paribas Tennis Open is considered the 5th major for tennis. And then obviously the granddaddy of them all, we have Coachella Music Festival and Stagecoach thereafter. As Jeff kind of mentioned, these are preset and predetermined type events that we can kind of plan for and prep for accordingly. They're not necessarily one-offs. We do have those in our markets, but these are the major events that we every year plan for. Obviously, with Coachella, it's a world-renowned music festival. Most have heard of it. If not, I'm sure you will at some point here in the near future. We do host over 250,000 attendees over the 2 weeks for that here in the Coachella Valley. So the entire valley does get a massive surge as to what Taylor and Jeff and Corinne were talking about. And it also, preparation is key. The battle is won before it is ever fought. That is kind of our motto here internally with our company, and that kind of dovetails into what everyone's been talking about today is preparation is key if you want to be successful for these major events. With that being said, we'll start with kind of some of our key strategies and key points that we really do try to focus on. Obviously, again, preparation and research. I know we sound like a broken record on this, but I think it's evident based upon all the speakers and panelists here today. If you're not preparing, you're not winning. So with that being said, you need to know your consumer and know your event. Obviously, with Coachella in particular, we know that that's a predetermined event. The lineup comes out, usually around a certain time period. And so with that being said, obviously we use dynamic pricing, but we do have to schedule rates based upon demand accordingly with each specific event. So with that being said, we anticipate usually a massive surge in demand as soon as the lineup is released. That is the strongest push, especially with our consumer demographic. We see most of the people being 21 to 35 years of age. They're very heavily involved in social media. As everyone knows, social media can kind of catch on like a wildfire. So as soon as the lineup is released, you need to be already prepared for those kind of surges with that pricing, knowing what's going to happen. So with Coachella in particular, we have kind of a double bell dynamic surge here where the lineup gets released. We see a massive influx of demand that obviously is correlating with the dynamic pricing to make sure you're maximizing rental income. After the initial kind of announcement of the lineup, you'll see kind of demand subdue a little bit, and then it will pick up again sharply as soon as the event comes up about 2 to 3 weeks out, talking with Jeff about lead time. With having the dynamic pricing, price optimizer, you're able to kind of maximize, obviously, your rental income, which is not only important for you as a Guesty user, but most importantly for your owners. Typically, these types of events in my area, these are kind of the income, strategies that we're putting in place to give back to our owners that really will take our owner over the top for the rest of the year. These are things that we are really, honing in on to maximize to its fullest extent. With that being said, obviously, Corinne's talked about it, Taylor, we all have on the panelists, but is obviously occupancy, understanding your event. Coachella, again, being a music festival, people are excited. There's a lot of anticipation. Obviously, dealing with a little bit more of a younger group, there could be, it's been known to have that potential, oh my gosh, parties or over occupancies, things like that. So one of the key strategies we do definitely during these events is minimum night stays. Again, that helps us with kind of controlling occupancy, controlling our guests, but also kind of systemizing kind of our cleaners, our scheduling, understanding, hey, listen, these are kind of the set times people are going to come in. And then that way we can kind of schedule accordingly. If you have too much turnover, and every company is different, but what we find for our company is, and the way we do things, if there's too much turnover during these events, I call it, you could kind of get lost in the sauce. And when you get lost in the sauce, your customer satisfaction might go down. Your communication may not be as 5-star as it would be in the past, just given that volatility. So with that being said, I strongly would consider doing a 2 to 3 night minimum stay if the market allows for it. And that'll really help just from, everything internally, from your cleaning staff to your vendors, to knowing kind of how we can tackle this systematically. This day and age, it seems, everyone is kind of moving to one point or another with an AI-powered solution, especially as you scale. Efficiency is a really important thing. We've partnered with Demora AI. Demora AI is a 24/7 phone receptionist that handles every single call, so no call goes unanswered. It can handle over 50 different languages. And why this is important for us, especially during these types of events, we do get quite a few phone calls that will come in as well. Hey, can you accommodate early check-in, late checkout? Hello, transportation. Is there a barbecue? What time's my check-in? Is there, what's the Wi-Fi information? So Demora is able to answer and respond to all those messages and those callers, which allows us to stay focused on the field, overseeing our maintenance department, overseeing the cleaners. And what happens is when they do call Demora, that automatically is synced with Guesty and goes into the Guesty unified inbox. So there is no loop of communication there. If someone wants to call in, if someone wants to, message us, those are all the little things that we're trying to do to boost customer satisfaction during these highly anticipated events. With that being said, that kind of dovetails into us going above and beyond. People are excited. People do come in early. People want to be heard. There's a lot of anticipation. They're with friends and family. So a couple of little things that you can do to be memorable, or just accommodating, understanding, especially that these are international events, or a lot of people are traveling to these events, is, again, as maybe Jeff or anybody, Corinne has mentioned, is upsells within reason, right? So again, obviously, if you can offer early check-in or a late checkout, with the guest is great. But remember, that's also kind of have to dovetail to your cleaning crew, making sure they understand, hey, listen, we're going to have some different adjustments on that. One of the biggest things we see with Coachella is luggage drop-offs. People are willing to wait for check-in time, but everyone always wants to know what to do with their luggage. So for us in particular, we've kind of come up with an internal strategy to accommodate luggage drop-offs, have them in a designated area, but mostly as a secure area and system that works. Obviously making sure everyone that drops off their luggage gets their exact luggage back, and their items are secure until check-in time. And then we do like to do, welcome gifts. Obviously, every company or user, that's different to what a welcome gift can be. Obviously, with us, sun is in abundance. So again, we go after providing water bottles, some sunscreen, and partnering with local companies here that maybe offer some things that we can kind of put into a little goodie bag, and putting our contact information there. What we do also is we do go ahead and put a couple extra signs throughout each property as to contact information. We feel that when people are coming into a new home, yes, check-in books are important. Yes, check-in instructions, all that is important, but people want accessibility is what we're finding. They want to come in and we find that someone wants to call or message right away versus simply look for it. So as many things as you can offer to a guest, that will encompass the entire guest satisfaction and make that a positive stay. So some of the things I just wanted to talk about and touch base and follow up here. Obviously, we're all nailing this down, as preparation is key if you want to win at these events. They're coming, whether they're a one-off or they're, predetermined, but is getting prepared and understanding, hey, listen, if it's bulk items, as Corinne mentioned, for cleaning products, or maybe, having extra toilet paper, paper towels, and putting those in the property with the anticipation People are going to be, there's going to be more people in the property. They're going to be using more supplies. If you could go ahead and prep those things in the properties before, that will help you in terms of the blowback for having the cleaning crews or whoever your quality control manager, however system you have, from running around with their head cut off trying to appease everybody. So, right, it kind of goes back to the battle is won before it is fought. If we can go ahead and prep these properties and prep the guests with the right information, you are going to have a way smoother, seamless transition through these events, and you're going to be able to handle them effectively. Obviously, maximizing resources and efficiency tools. Again, Breezeway is one of those massive resources. Demora AI, again, another high-powered AI solution, for Guesty users to utilize, especially during these types of events. And then obviously the price optimization is key. Obviously looking from the survey there, if you're not using it, I would highly recommend as a Guesty user or anybody that's in the short-term vacation rental space, you need to be jumping on board with these types of tools in order to be successful, not only for your company, for your owners. Happy owners are at the end of the day kind of the goal. I know we're focused on guests, but if the owner's not happy as well, that could be the flip side of you being able to continue working these events or losing those accounts to other people that are using price optimization. And then customer satisfaction and repeat business, right? Jeff talked on it. You have your dynamic pricing, you're maximizing your rental income. That's great. But at the end of the day, people are paying a premium for that product. You need to go ahead and try to deliver on that the best to your possibilities. If you can go ahead and give them a seamless check-in, provide clear instructions, provide them a great business model to be successful and have a good stay, you're going to get that back because it was such a positive experience during that time. People are going to reflect on it, go, wow, that host or that company was really good. If I'm ever in the area again, I'm going to stay there, or I am going to recommend it to family and friends. Obviously, word of mouth is the best type of marketing, especially, if it's coming from someone you respect. And that's the way we try to do business here at Desert Soul. If you guys have any questions as to how I kind of, tackle our events, or, if you're in a certain city and you kind of would like some feedback, I'm always happy to collaborate with other Guesty users or any other users. I do believe a rising tide lifts all boats. We are in this together, and I do believe, based upon my partnership with Guesty, the price optimizations, Demora, Breezeway, these are all very strong foundational pillars to make you successful for your next big event. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nano. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you for sharing your insight and expertise. So, as promised, super exciting, but one more announcement before we kick off the Q&A. If you're looking for that more database insight with revenue boosting strategies that we've all talked about, and are looking to maximize the impact ahead of the World Cup, please take a moment to download our STR World Cup playbook. This is going to help you learn how to price, operate, and scale during one of what we've obviously discussed about this whole time, biggest travel events of the decade. So I'll leave this up here for just one more second so you can grab that QR code. Just a reminder again, if you do miss it, don't worry, you will get it with the recording follow-up. And then we will go ahead and dive into our panel discussion. So thanks to everyone who answered that poll, and I'm sure you're really excited to get those questions answered. So we're going to go ahead and kick it off with a special thanks to all the attendees who sent in questions ahead of time for the webinar today. So we're just going to kind of go round robin and take it until we are out of time. So I want to start out with Corinne. So as we were talking about a little bit before, those major events are often attracting international guests who might have different expectations. How should operators adjust their operational standards and communication protocols for global audiences during these particular periods?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think, the key is really balancing the consistency with the flexibility of the work that you're doing. Folks are going to have their non-negotiables, the way that they clean, the way that they, treat safety, how quickly they respond, so that everybody sort of gets a really consistent experience. But I think one thing that's really important, specifically when you're looking for like a global audience, is maybe should I be simplifying my language? Nino talked a little bit about, the being able to translate. I think it was Nino that said that, translate into their local languages, right? So that They're getting that. So consider offering multilingual messaging and then meeting guests in the channel that's going to work best for them. In the US, many of us rely on text. But when you look at a more international, traveler segment, you're looking at a lot more with WhatsApp. So make sure that you're thinking about WhatsApp as a channel that you're communicating through. And then, being really clear in the expectations around things like check-in and house rules. And I loved, what you said about, the luggage drops and making that really easy for folks. I think that's really important. So just, looking at your communication and your client journey and what that looks like and finding that flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And Reply AI within Guesty actually also provides those translations. And so it's integrated directly into your Guesty inbox, which is fantastic, as is WhatsApp. So going on, Jeff, when we're talking about these event-driven pricing, what's fundamentally different from our standard dynamic pricing models? Like, what are the variables that property managers are often missing?
Yeah, I think it's even less about pricing. It's more about your rate plans and cancellation policies. Theoretically, you should be offering a refundable and a non-refundable option for a cancellation policy on all those booking channels all year round. But for these big events, I would definitely have a non-refundable policy. I don't want someone booking ahead of time and canceling last minute because their team didn't make it, right? So I think that's a key one specifically for these events. Taylor Swift tour, whatever those big events are, you can build those specific cancellation policies or rate plans around them.
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody's canceling for the Eras Tour. I don't think Taylor Swift canceled a concert. Okay, so then, Nino, when you're targeting those international fans or the people that are coming in for Coachella, which is also a global experience, what guest experience elements are you building that you wouldn't normally prioritize? Like, how are you adapting for different cultures? And as we talked about previously, those different languages as well.
Yeah, great question. Obviously with that, preparation's key. So what we typically do is if we kind of find out that people are coming in, understanding these are big events, what we do internally is we actually go ahead and send out the check-in instructions twice, and we do it a week earlier than normal. So again, we're kind of doing, hey, anticipation, a lot of moving parts. People are coming in from different time zones, different areas. If we could go ahead and be proactive and get that out to them at least one round earlier and follow up again, we hope to have them have that information, prior to the event. And again, we do that through Guesty, texting, WhatsApp. We go through all the channels ahead of time and ensure that if they have any questions or special recommendations or understanding there's a language barrier, obviously we do what we can accordingly, but we do try to go ahead and hold their hand a little bit more, understanding they are coming from out of town and try to put ourselves in their purview of their lenses and expectations of, hey, this is your information. And hopefully with that, the anticipation anxiety will subside and they'll have a successful check-in and stay with us.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And that actually lends perfectly into my next question for Corinne, which is when we're having those rapid guest turnover cycles. So we not only have the preparation leading into the start of getting ready for these events to happen, but when we're in the middle of all of this, right? As Nino said, we don't want to get lost in the sauce, right? So what's the biggest operational mistake that you see property managers making when they're preparing for these high pressure periods of rapid turnover cycles?
I think a lot of it is sort of losing the consistency in the process that they've established, right? People start to be like, oh, I've got this many turnovers and I've got this many hours, and they focus a little bit more on speed. And when that happens, that's when things get missed, right? That is when tasks are not completed to the level that they need to be, or when something isn't communicated or the team gets burnt out. And so I think that, these high pressure times actually require more structure and really clear expectations, good timelines, good visibility into what's getting completed, and backups for your backups, right? Making sure that you've got plans when somebody is running late or somebody calls out sick of what are you going to do in those times. And so I would say, like, not following the existing processes in place and just focusing on speed is a big mistake that folks can make.
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes perfect sense, making sure that you are prepared for absolutely any outcome. So we've got time for just one more question each as we work through Jeff and Nino. So for Jeff, can you walk us through the pricing strategy timeline as we're leading up to specifically the World Cup. As these schedules are getting announced, when should operators start adjusting their rates, and what signals should they be watching for?
Yeah, you have to treat each of these timelines as a different event. So we already passed event one, which was the group or the draw stage, right? We know who's in the World Cup. That was the first portion of this. The second portion here is going to be going into the group stage. This is a longer event, right? It's not a seasonal like recurring, but there's a longer runway here to kind of attract and maintain and watch the market pricing. So keep an eye on the market occupancy. If you have a tool like Price Optimizer, what's going on over the next 6 months, 5 months as it comes closer and closer, and how does your occupancy compare to that? And then lastly, we're going to have like the big rush for the knockout stage. It's its own, these are their own specific events. They're all going to be completely unique. And that is going to be a rush once we get to the middle end of June and we start seeing which teams are going to win the group or not. That is going to determine people are going to start booking like right away. So the last group stage is like the 27th of June. I think that's the last match. So the knockout stage begins the 28th. So it's a really short window.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you for that. And our final one, again, last but not least, with Nino. So event bookings are often coming in with those unique guest requests and questions, especially depending on the event. So how are you training your team? What are you doing to adjust your communication templates to handle that type of complexity of inquiries?
Yeah, sure. Obviously, these events, they pose a different challenge than normal day-to-day operations. So with that being said, again, anticipation of these events coming up, we know Coachella comes in April. We huddle internally, usually the first week of April, go, hey, listen, here are the protocols. These are the accommodations within reason that we are going to be offering to bulk guests. So either be early check-in, late checkout. Again, I talked about luggage storage, understanding each cleaner, if you have multiple cleaning companies or cleaners, having them understand the processes that you're offering. That way, when you do communicate with everybody internally on your team, we're all on the same page. They know exactly what time an early check-in is or a late checkout or a luggage storage. Obviously, if some people call in, they have ultra special accommodations. At these events, it's tough. It's kind of a game time decision. If we can do it, obviously more than happy to try to establish that repeat business and 5-star customer satisfaction. If not, we're happy to offer an alternative, solution to those guests and hope that, that is acceptable to them.
Awesome. Yeah, it really sounds like you guys have it dialed in on how to be very flexible in offering the guests exactly what they need to have the best possible time with their relevant events. So with that, I know we've gone a little bit over, but thank you guys so much. Thank you to everyone for joining today. Thank you so much for our panelists, for our guests, for sharing these absolutely priceless insights. We really look forward to seeing everyone at our many upcoming virtual events that we have planned for the STR community, all of which, as I've mentioned a few times ahead, which are going to be recorded and will be posted on our events page at guesty.com. Please don't hesitate to reach out to events@guesty.com with any other questions that you may have. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and thank you so much for joining.